Hello, everybody. I really hope that everybody had an awesome holiday season. I am coming with a bulletin of information. Usually, this is what's so awesome. Usually, around the holidays, people do not know what exactly is going on in the political. And I know that many times we might think, well, you know what? I'm going to shut it all off because it's the holiday season and I'm spending time with family. But such important things have happened, and we come with an information bulletin from the Truth Forum. I know I don't have the guys with me and we didn't want to do a full episode, but I wanted to come through and just really get into a summary of things that happened in the month of December that are just mind-blowing. And it's really meant to not make you afraid. You have to remember, this Truth Forum is for the believer. It's from a believer's perspective, and it's for you to be informed, but also to look to God, to look for what God is doing. And I can't wait to get into this. Everything starts, and I know everybody knows about this. December 4th, Brian Thompson, CEO of United Healthcare, is gunned down in Midtown Manhattan on the early morning of December 4th. And let me tell you, everybody saw the video. Everybody saw that this young man, he was a young man and he was a CEO, gets just assassinated there in Manhattan. It's supposed to be a very safe place of New York City, which is not many places in New York these days. And I in no way condone violence. I think that it's such a sad, horrific scene that took place December 4th. But really, what I really want to focus on, and if we can get the producer to put that up, that article, the sad thing about this is that it takes place in the middle of the day, and just the information that we have access to is very interesting to me. It's very interesting to me because the moment that this all takes place, we have access. And when I mean we, you start seeing all these videos on the internet, whether you're on Instagram, whether you're on X, whether you're anywhere, everybody got to see the video of this all take place. And it was a very sad situation, but I couldn't believe that we had somebody in custody of, I want to say a few days after the event. We had a motive, a manifesto, a murder weapon. The person's social media was out there. Luigi Mangione, I believe it is his name. Everything publicized. And the shocking details of, what people were saying. Was he a client of United Healthcare? Did he have a family member? It was first reported that he might have been a client. Then later they were saying that he had a family member that was actually denied access. And there was even an inscription we were reported on the bullets. There was an inscription on each one of the bullets that were fired that day. That means that the assassin wanted people to read the message on the bullets themselves. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because it makes me think. It makes me think in this sense. How is it, or who determines how much information we get? Like, why is it that in some cases we have all kinds of information, all kinds of videos, all kinds of stuff just bombarded? Because I mean, when it happened, I think it just grasped all the news outlets and everybody was talking about it. And then who decides when something isn't publicized? Who decides when something isn't going to be shared with the public? And that's really what I want to talk. I really want to share with you. It's because I really want you to think. See, a lot of the times we see these media outlets and we hear these news anchors and the legacy media, which we all know is going on a decline like never before. We're living a time like never before, and we really are in a state of the game where you have to think for yourself. And why do I say that? I don't want to cry over spilled milk. I thank the Lord. And you guys know on the Truth Forum, we talked about this. But what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, and the attempt on President 45 and almost 47 here soon coming into office, we don't have, all we knew after that situation took place was that the suspect was taken out and he was cremated a few days after. All of his social media was frozen. You couldn't find anything about him. Everything became hearsay. We can't even mention his name because even if I mention the situation, automatically the algorithm changes up everything and the video is hard to find. So you have to understand who makes these calls. Who makes the call to say, hey, this is something we're going to go ahead and run with, and this is something that we're not going to run with? And that's really what I want you to think about today, because how is it that we can find all this information in one scenario and in one incident, but not so much in the other? And I don't want to come off as a conspiracy theorist. I don't want to do that, but it's something that we have to comprehend. That in one case and in one area, you have the Secret Service involved and you have the agencies of 3 letters. You can think about that and figure that out yourself, that are all involved, and we don't get any information. And then all of a sudden, in another instance, we'll get all the information. And we'll get pictures, and we'll get the media post, and we'll get that there's a manifesto, and we'll even get details on the manifesto. And that's something that really, really intrigues me, in the sense that who calls that shot? Who says that? Who's the person that actually says this is going to get released and this is not going to get released? And that's something that I really want you to think about today. Something else that happened in the month of December, while you were probably out shopping and putting up your Christmas tree and maybe getting tired of the Christmas music, right? Congress tries to pass a bill. And let me tell you about this bill. It's in the middle of the month. They drop a 1,500-page omnibus bill. While everybody is worried about what you're going to gift your significant other, everybody's worrying about, if you're going to give your kid an Xbox or a PS5 or whatever it is that you're going to do, or in my case, a new computer or something like that. You're thinking about your family, and you're thinking about the holidays, and Congress is busy passing a bill. And see, this is why I'm telling you that the world is changing. Because many times bills like this would pass, at 1, 2, 3 in the morning, and over 1,000 pages. Nobody reads them. The Congress men and women themselves, and if they want to read them, in some cases they'd have to pass them first. And it's just, let me tell you what was on this bill. This bill comes from Congress, and it is, like I said, 1,500-page bill. It's talking about giving raises to the politicians in Washington, getting them a pay raise, and not even just any pay raise. I'm talking going from $174,000 a year to $243,000 a year, building a football stadium in D.C., 72 pages of the pandemic preparedness and response policy. So getting us ready for the next pandemic. I don't know about you, but I don't want to pass any government funding for the next pandemic. Do I want to be prepared? Absolutely. But I want to be accurately informed. Our Congress men and women, they need to be able to read what's on a bill. It shouldn't have to be snuck in during the holiday season when everybody is on vacation, everybody's away. It should not be snuck in there like that. And if it has to be passed during that time, then it needs to be reported. The bill even included something called the renewal of the Global Engagement Center. Do you know what that is? That is actually an organization that is riddled right now with legal censorship battles. We are in an information war. It's all about what is allowed to be put out there. You can tell me, I'm telling you, the Truth Forum is just completely shadow banned. We do not get any traction. We're not allowed to be posted anywhere. This channel's not monetary. Okay, we're not making any money off of this. And the reason why I feel, you might say, well, Pastor Jaime, why are you doing this then? I'll tell you why. Because I feel the need for men of God, women of God to be informed. That's it. If we don't, I'm not saying that we're going to agree 100% on everything. The reality of it is that there might be a point of view that we might not agree on, but that doesn't take from the matter of us having to be informed to make informed decisions. The only way we could ever make informed decisions is if we're informed. And if our government does not inform us properly, now let me tell you what took place. If you missed all this, you were probably, I don't know, you were probably drinking eggnog. And if you're Hispanic or Mexican like me, you were probably eating an overload of tamales. And while we're all doing that, if we can put it up, producer, the differences in the pages of the bill from one day to the other. So what happens is that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy begin to go to X and begin to talk about this bill and begin to talk about what is on the bill. And what happens is that people begin to take note. This is where we're actually winning. It might feel sometimes like we're losing, but we're actually winning. Things are changing. Before, we had no means. Before, we didn't have anything that would tell us that this was actually happening. Only thing that would have happened was Congress would have passed this bill, and we would have woke up to some news about how the bill had passed and all these things were going to be changing and all this money, more money, because it's all about money. At the end of the day, it's all about funding certain programs, certain ideas, certain things that they might be important to Washington, D.C. They might be in the agenda of the left and the right. And I like to call them the dinosaurs. It might be the agenda of the dinosaurs, the ones that have been in the Senate forever. I mean, from before even I was born, they were already holding their seats there. And see, this has to change. And I love what happened because Elon Musk and Vivek begin to be transparent, and they begin to talk about what is actually on the bill and how people should call their senators. And what ended up happening is that people did. People took note and they started to call their senators. Well, what ended up happening? The bill needed to be revised in order to pass. It went from being a 1,500-page bill to, I believe, a 300 and something page bill. That means that 1,200 pages were eliminated off of that. And that's what I'm trying to say is that we are in an information war. I really don't know who's running the country. I really don't know who's running the arm of media and who says what's going to fly and what's not going to fly. But the reality of it is that if this country is really going to the people are really going to make informed decisions on how to vote and what to do, we can't just say, oh, the election is over and that's it. Because I'll be honest with you, I was one of those. I was one of those that would say, you know what? The election has passed and we know who the president's going to be and they're going to take power in January 20th and it's going to be over and that's it. And I can shut down anything that has to do with politics for another 4 years. Right now, we don't have that luxury. We're starting to win. Things are starting to change, but we have to remain informed. I'll be honest with you. I wanted to end the Truth Forum. I really wanted to just be like, you know what, this is it. We're just going to run it to the election season. But then when the election season comes, I begin to see there's so many things that people aren't really noticing. And if you see the video, I hope that you tune in all the way through and you really get informed. So then Elon goes on X and he actually puts up a tweet. If we can get that tweet, I'm going to pull it up here on my phone so that I can see it along with you. He puts this tweet, and I love what he says. He says, your elected representatives have heard you, and now the terrible bill is dead. That's something that would have never happened. If this would have taken place 5-6 years ago, we wouldn't have heard about the bill. We wouldn't have known anything, and it just would have been something that you and I would have been stuck with the bill with, and it just would have been added on to the national debt, and it would have been added on something that we would have to just eventually pay for, and if we can't pay it, guess what? Our children would pay for it. And he says something crazy. He says, the voice of the people has triumphed, and he puts vox populi. And what does that mean? That means the voice of the people in Latin. And then he puts vox Dei, which means is the voice of God. That's something insane if you think about it. And I'm not in by any means saying that Elon Musk is a Christian or that he's, that I honestly, I will tell you this. I believe that God lifts up men and women for certain times and in a certain hour. And God can use anybody. If he used the jawbone of a donkey in the day of Samson, if he used Cyrus, or if he used Cyrus in the day of Daniel, if he uses people like Joseph of Arimathea in Jesus's day, when he goes and he gives his tomb, or Nicodemus when he brings myrrh and he donates it and he brings it and he buys the spices for Jesus's body. If he uses people that are not necessarily from the church, they're not necessarily Christians, but they're people that are promoted to do something right, like Elon Musk, like Vivek Ramaswamy, I cheer on God. Because the truth is this: if it wasn't for these men that are really putting their name out there, that are really trying to work something out for the people, you and I wouldn't have heard about this. Something else that took place that was, moving on to something else, but something else that took place in December was the president, Joe Biden. He went to commute, and I believe the last time I checked, it was 1,500 sentences. This is people that were found guilty, people that had already been judged. He's commuting them. And if you know what commuting them means, that means that he's basically forgiving them and removing the judgment. And to me, this is just, I don't know who, again, I highly doubt that Joe Biden is making this call. I highly doubt it. But if so, how is it that this is happening? Let me tell you a little bit of the people that he's commuting. It looks like he's commuting 2 child murderers, the Boston bomber, a synagogue shooter, and a congregation killer, not to mention people that were sentenced for espionage for China, people that were guilty of child pornography. That's all being commuted right now. And I tell you this because how come we don't know about this? How come no one is sounding the alarm? I guarantee you that if it would have been Donald Trump doing this, we would be hearing it all over the legacy media. We would be hearing about this 24/7. It would be something that is completely just going to be pushed down our throats. We would all be talking about how the United States would have to be insurrectionists to do the right thing against the president that's coming in on the 20th. And that's what I think to myself. We have been for so long told how to think. We've been told how to think because we haven't gotten the full story. You might say, well, no, that's not true, Pastor Jaime. I've always been my own man. I've always thought about things and just made decisions on my own. Really? Have you really made decisions on your own? How can you really say that if you don't really know the full story? If I go to tell you and try to get your honest opinion, but I only tell you 60% of the truth, or I only tell you 70% of the truth, how can you make a decision, or how can you decide on what perspective you agree on or what your stance is on anything if I don't ever give you the full story? Biden is looking to commute all these sentences, and then we see drones flying all over New Jersey, drones flying all over major cities, all over the United States, and everybody's talking about UFOs this and UFOs that and UFOs this. And in all honesty, talking spiritually now, talking to you as a pastor, I believe that there is a war going on in the air. I believe that there are forces. And again, you might not agree with me. You might be listening to me and you say, man, this guy is nuts. Let me tell you something. The Bible says that Satan is called, one of his titles is the Prince of the Air. Why is that? Because he controls atmospheres. He's not in the, in the third heaven. He's not in heaven, in heaven with God. He gets to approach the courts of heaven, and he gets to be in certain atmospheres called, there's the heavens of the heavens of the heavens, says the word of God. So why am I saying that? I believe that right now there is not just an information war, but there's also a spiritual war. And I believe that there are things that we're not, again, we go back to information, we're not given the full information of. But what I'm seeing here, and something that was reported, again, it was reported very hush hush. Nobody was talking about this. And that was that the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission releases report confirming radioactive material lost in transit. Why do I tell you that? Because what is suspected is that they lost radioactive material, and that's very dangerous in the sense that we don't know if they lost it or if it was stolen. You know, if we don't want to get any information, they'll say it was stolen. I mean, they'll say they lost it, excuse me, not stolen, but in reality, it could have been stolen. Maybe it was stolen. And see, and then you might say, well, what does that have to do with the drones? The drones are equipped with sensors that can detect radioactive materials. So in a sense, they'll fly these drones at night so that people won't notice them. And a lot of the times, again, we go back to the same thing in the sense that we don't know what our government is in possession of. We don't know what it is that we have technology-wise. But I will tell you this, that the fear-mongering in people, not having people understand or know what this is or what happened. And I understand that there can be panic. But this is where we need to pray. As the church needs to be in constant prayer. We need to believe that God is in control of all of this. And we see that December was a huge month for news and situations that all took place during the holiday season. And many times people will say to me, well, you know what? The election season's over. I really don't like to watch the news, so I'll turn it off. I'll shut it off. But the truth is that we're in a time right now where the church needs to be informed. We're in a time right now where we need to intercede in prayer. We need to intercede for the people that govern this country, and we also need to vote. We also need to be involved in the bills. We also need to call our senators if we see that things are not being represented according to what we the people stand for. Then that's a problem. They were talking about making it, and I hope that this happens. The new administration is talking about even doing bills where they have to be voted on during the day, and they have to be voted on bill by bill. And I agree with that, bill by bill. Things need to be brought to Congress, and things need to be voted on in a transparent manner. None of this, oh, we do it at night. We do it, 2, 3 in the morning while the Americans are sleeping. We'll go ahead and pass these bills. And it doesn't matter, if you got to read the bill or not, it doesn't matter because you're the senator and you're representing your people. Are you really representing the people? Is a senator that's been sitting in office and sitting in Washington, D.C. for 30, 40 years, are they really representing my needs and my worries and my necessities as a citizen of the United States? And that's something that we have to really think about. But yet, if us as the church, if us as people are not involved, if we're not looking into really what's going on around us, and if we shut ourselves out, because many times Christians, we're guilty of this, where we'll say, you know what, well, Jesus is coming back, I'm going to worry about the church, I'm going to worry about the kingdom of God. Let me tell you this, what would happen if one day the government just begins to just shut down churches? Like we saw it during the pandemic, right, where churches were not allowed to operate. But imagine if that was just the new norm. Imagine if the United States just said one day, hey, you know what? We're going to censor hate speech. And because, churches, they preach against sin, all of a sudden now what is preached in churches will be regarded as hate speech. That's happening in a lot of the Western countries. That's happening in places like China. That's happening in places like Australia. That's happening in places like New Zealand. And you have to understand and think to yourself, when is enough enough? Are you going to wake up when your government is actually coming down on your church? When they're coming to try to censor your pastor? Is that when you're going to try to do something? Or could you see the writing on the walls now? Could you see the writing on the walls now to actually wake up and see the different situations that are happening? Not too long ago, and see, this is the thing you got to understand. Right now, we don't have the full story on this, but I'm gonna bring it up. A certain individual took a Tesla truck. They rented a Tesla truck, took it to Trump Tower in Las Vegas, and literally, it had it's either a bomb or it's fireworks. I don't know what it is, but this Tesla truck just explodes. And the man that was inside was there. You know, he passes away immediately. And we're given this story. And I'll tell you what, the story that we're being fed, it reeks. It reeks. Why do I tell you this? Because you have to understand something. We have gone through years of an open border with organizations that are looking to do us harm. And, you know, I'm planning on putting out a couple videos. I'm planning on bringing some more information and some more light on this issue. But I really want you to understand and know that right now the church has to pray for the safety of people in major cities. We just had an attack in New Orleans. That was a terrible attack as well. And we had another attack of a migrant, if we could put that up, producer, a migrant in New York as well, that ended up coming to this country and then set a woman on fire in the subway. Now, again, I can definitely tell you this. We have a war, and it's between light and darkness. And if we allow forces, and what I mean by forces, you got to understand something. There's two narratives that have been going on. Ever since COVID, ever since the pandemic, there has been two narratives that have been going on. And at this point in time, you're going to have to make a decision, if you haven't already, what side you stand, where you stand. And all we can do is really present information, and we can only present the information that's available. And you're really going to have to make a decision on where you stand. But why do I say this to you? I say this because right now, all of the movement that put Donald Trump in office is under attack. It's under attack. It's under attack with immigration. It's under attack with visas, foreigners. It's under attack on, right now there's an attack of information in the sense of whether Elon Musk is the true president of the United States, which is total nonsense. It's just that you have to understand something. The Bible, the Word of God says that a house divided will not stand. So the movement that's behind Donald Trump, right, that's looking to make America great again, that's the movement that's behind Donald Trump, will not be successful if it's divided. And we're planning on bringing another video in regards to that and why the United States of America needs immigration. We need immigration, but we need legal immigration. And you can't have legal immigration if you have open borders. There's no way that I can serve my community and I can be a blessing to my community if my home is not safe, if my kids are not safe, if my wife is not safe. If my home is unguarded and unsafe, there's no way that I can go look to bless the community. And see, that's what's happening right now. There's a discussion, there's a narrative that's looking to divide the movement. And that's where we have to understand and know that we cannot succeed as Americans if we're divided. We need to look beyond our differences, and we need to focus on the things that bring us together. What is the thing that brings us together? That we want to be prosperous, that we want to be safe, that we want to have clean communities. We want to have a good educational system. We want our children to grow up and have opportunities, no matter their skin color, no matter who they are, that they would feel the love of your neighbor. Because ultimately, that's the message of Jesus. What was the message of Jesus? To love God above all things and to love your neighbor as you love yourself. There's no way that I can call me a good Christian if I don't love my neighbor. And I shouldn't have to think whether I want to love my neighbor based upon the color of his skin or his traditions or his background. But at the same time, we need to be alert. And we need to understand. The Bible says, and I've said this many times on this channel, sly as serpents, innocent as doves. What does that mean? That means that I'm not going to allow the enemy, Satan. My enemy is not a person of a different viewpoint as me. My enemy is Satan. And that's what the Bible calls him, the enemy. So I can't look to say that the enemy, is coming with good intentions. No, that's not true. The Bible says that the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. So when me being sly as a serpent means I understand the devices of the enemy. And if the devices of the enemy right now are to divide this country, then I need to understand where that message is coming from, and I need to not pay attention to that message. So that's the message that's going forth right now. That DJT is not the real president, that he gets told what to do by Elon Musk, and that Vivek Ramaswamy exposed himself over some comments that he made, and that now he's out of the running and he's done. And we can't see things like that. We have to get back to business. What's happening? What's this government doing? What can America do to be a blessing to all the nations of the world? And this is I'm going to end with this. I'm preparing some steaks during the holidays with my son. And I'm just having a great time. And I'll be honest with you. I try to stay informed, but at the same time, I understand that my role first is husband. Then it's dad. First, I want to be a great husband. Then I want to be a great father. And I want to lead my home with love. And I want to lead my home in just as I'm not perfect, but I want to strive to be the best person that I can be. While I'm sitting there, me and my son, we ended up cooking these amazing steaks. Shout out to the producer. And we're making these amazing steaks. And it's so funny because he looks at me and he tells me, "Hey, Dad, you put out a video. What were you looking at, son? What were you looking at? Why'd you ask me that question?" I know he's off camera, but he's listening.
I was actually watching a video about everything that had been exposed during 2024. So it had to do with like Diddy, everything that was coming out, the media, all that, and everything that was going wrong. And I remember you saying at the beginning of the year, I was just thinking back where you said that 2024 was going to be a year of exposing. So I was like, oh, whoa, okay. So that was 2024. I'm gonna ask the same man this time.
I remember that, yeah.
2025, and then I asked you, "Hey, yeah. Dad, what do you think 2025 is for us? What do you think is gonna happen?"
And this is so funny because I was making these steaks, and you gotta understand when Pastor Jaime is making steaks, he's focused on what he's doing. I'm not thinking politics. I'm not thinking about the church. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm getting the steaks done, and we're gonna have a good time, right? So I'm there. And I'm preparing these steaks. He drops this question on me and he says, "Hey, Dad, you said 2024 was the year of exposures. That's what you said. And what's the word for 2025? And I'll be honest, I answered so honestly, because I'll be honest with you, I don't want to be a religious figure. I don't want to be a religious figure. Why? You might say, well, what do you mean you're a pastor? How can you not be a religious figure? Let me tell you something. I'm a pastor, but I'm a human being. I'm a man. I know I'm not perfect. I don't have it all together sometimes. But at the end of the day, I want to seek God as my refuge, as my focal point, as my guide, as the Lord over my life. So I'm preparing these steaks and he tells me, "Do I have a word for 2025? And I looked at him with a blank stare and I tell him, "I haven't prayed about it, son, because that's the truth. I want my son to see that I'm a human being and that there's going to be seasons in his life that he didn't pray about it. There is no prayer about it. I don't have an answer for you." So I told him that. I said, "I don't have an answer for you, son. I haven't prayed about it." And I continued to do the steak thing that I was doing. And as soon as I got back to the steak, I heard one word in my spirit. And I thank the Lord for this. And the only reason why I'm sharing this is because I want you to pray about it. I want you to pray about this. And the word was judgment. Judgment was the word. And you might say to yourself, wow, that is scary. And that is, but let me tell you something. To the just, to the person that is in the light, to the person that is of God, judgment is a good thing, because judgment brings your recompense. Your recompense means your reward. See, and I'm not saying that Jesus is coming back. Please don't take that away from me. Jesus can come back whenever he decides to come back. That's not a question for me. But when I heard the word judgment, I felt that God was going to put things in their proper place. But I will tell you this, the church must stand up. We cannot sit idly by and not do anything and expect to live blessed, to be blessed. I want you to know that this attack that has been coming forth for the last 5-6 years upon this country and upon the world, it was permitted by God. And you might say, well, then he's an evil God. Why would he allow this to happen? You need to understand something. God would rather the world be in a shaking and the people's hearts repented with him than the world be in a peaceful comfort and the hearts of the people far away from him. The reason why we have gone through so much is because God is calling you. And if you've never made your decision to follow Christ, maybe now is that time. The reason why you haven't had peace, the reason why you've been feeling like you're missing something in life, the reason why you feel like you just are not fulfilled is because there's something missing in your life, and that something missing is Jesus Christ. And with that, we'll end the bulletin, the info bulletin of the Truth Forum. I hope you had a wonderful holiday season. I hope that you're ready for 2025. Let me tell you something. Learn to do something. Learn to say, this year will be better than last year. Why? Because God is with me. God is for me. And he is not against me. And if he's for me, who can be against me? God bless you. We'll see you next time.